It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of It's About to Go Down. I am Marc Williams.
And I'm Cathey Armillas. I'm so excited. We're doing something new. Marc, check it out. We've got two people on our show. We have got the awesome Marcus and Josh. And Marcus, he's an award-winning marketer, innovation designer, and entrepreneur. Josh is also an award-winning innovator, Stanford D schooler, hotelier, and craftsman. And you know what? I met these two amazing souls, Marc, when I went to Nashville just a little while ago. We partnered up on a storytelling session, and the three of us kind of geeked out about how much we love ideas, like how ideas rule the world. And you know what these two awesome folks are doing? This is amazing. They're doing something called idea science. So this is something they already have, Marc. They use this with their clients, and they created this 3-hour session. And it's idea science is music, neuroscience, and practical tools for building momentum to solve business problems, all in a 3-hour package. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Josh, Marcus, welcome to It's About to Go Down, and let's talk about idea science.
Thank you for having us. It's so cool to hear someone else like intro the thing, because it's like, man, is that what we're doing? And the answer to that question is yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about it just to kind of jump us into it. Like you said, Cathey, for idea science, it's music, it's neuroscience, and it's practical tools for business leaders. But where this ultimately came from is Josh and I met a couple of years ago at the Stanford D School, and we hit it off, and we've been leading innovation design programs for a while. And I'll be honest, there have been these articles that have been leading these conversations about the present state and the future of design thinking. And a lot, you got 75% of the world probably don't even know what design thinking is, but then you've got this 25% that love it and breathe it and have been practicing it. And it's about a 30-year-old discipline, and it's going through some changes. So the innovation practice is needing some innovation. And the angle that Josh and I wanted to come at was, hey, if we could try to make this thing accessible, then we could probably move that much closer to bringing innovation to innovation. And that kind of led us to exploring where are we naturally drawn to innovation. Josh is a musician. I worked in music for a really long time. And so it took a second for us to kind of have some courage. We're like, you know what, let's lean into that. And from there, we started to ask, we wanted to kind of focus on what we know to be true about brainstorming, and that it doesn't work for most people. Josh did some legwork, some groundwork, some research, if you will, and was asking creative leaders over and over again, like, tell us about the last time you had a breakthrough idea or an idea you were excited about. And next to none of them said that it was in a group brainstorm, but that these ideas, these breakthrough ideas, were sort of happening in these moments of solo or boredom context, where folks were able to sort of make these uncanny connections to maybe a challenge that has been sticking in their head. And so basically we wanted to approach this experience to give people the opportunity to break free from obvious and ideas and solutions that they think their boss wants to hear. So that's some of what we got going on, and that's how we like to talk about it.
Wow. I already wrote down a whole bunch of things that just
I know, me too.
Brain. This now makes sense that when I'm bored and I'm walking alone, that I come up with some really good ideas.
I know, right? And there's And so the thing to it is, and we'll give you a little example of this. One of the stories we love to tell is about Willie Nelson. And so what we know about Willie Nelson is that he wrote his best 3 songs when he had 105-degree fever, right? And so the science behind that is that with his brain running that hot, theta brainwave activity is going on in his head. So he's, the layman's term or the layman's way of talking about that is that he was lucid. His mind is sort of in a more lucid state. So his natural inhibitors are dropped, and he's that much more enabled to be creative and to be exploratory. So we look at that, right, that Willie Nelson bit, and we say, wow, 3 of his best. And we all know Willie. We know the accolades. We know his career. He wrote his best 3 songs in one day with 105-degree fever. Now, people would listen to that and say, like, oh, yeah, well, shoot, he's Willie Nelson. I expect that from him. But what Josh and I are doing is saying, hey, there's actually some science at play with that magic, right? It's not magic. There's some science at play, right? There's a way we can sort of decode or demystify that. And when we zero in on theta brainwave activity leading to a more lucid state, we can say, okay, well, how can we tap into that without needing to be sick at 105-degree fever? Hence, we bring in guided meditations and start to lead teams through ways of experiencing that same phenomenon themselves and let them experience their own genius as they're guided into that experience. So that's like one example of how we bring this to life.
Yeah, because 105 fever, you're almost going to die. So we don't want to almost die to come up with good ideas.
Yeah. We want ideas to die for, not to die for ideas.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Marcus.
Right?
Totally.
It's really fun to observe the teams of people that we're working with as we're sharing this bit. They're like, this is interesting, but where are we going with this? And when we share, it doesn't take 105-degree fever to access theta waves. We introduce different tools or protocols to be able to experience that. There's some hot language in the spaces, yoga nidra or non-sleep deep rest. Any of these NSDR, any of these things have one thing in common, and that is a stillness practice. The discipline of choosing stillness and leaning into it. And we're like, what does that have to do with better ideas? When embracing a stillness practice, your brain releases dopamine targeted to specific areas in your brain synonymous to divergent thinking. It also increases your ability to access memories. One interesting fact about ideas is they never are born or come from scratch. It's always a novel collision of existing memories that you already have in your mind. And so increasing your access to the library shelves in your brain helps get to ideas quicker. And the third component of theta brainwave activity is heightened visualization or imagery. So we're spending less attention on what our body's doing. We're able to almost quiet the analytical part of our mind and access some fantastical thinking. So all these things like, man, how can we get more of that? And the answer is practicing stillness, which isn't particularly obvious when we think about jumping into brainstorming.
All right.
You're breaking Mark's brain.
You are, but first of all, can I give so much love for this? Ideas to die for rather than dying for an idea. That's one. And 2, a novel collision of existing memories. Where are you guys coming from? That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Here's what's in my head.
America.
Here's what's sitting on my brain, and I always talk about coming from my teaching background, right? And when you talk about sort of like in solitude and that place of boredom, which is where like so many rich ideas and the visualization and the stillness. And I keep having this image of what's going on, probably not just in schools, but even in boardrooms across the world, where we're trying to brainstorm in groups. And it's like that feels like the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious because it's hard to break people out of a norm. What is it that seems to be gravitating us towards this group brainstorming? What do you think that is?
I think it's
Culture.
with, yeah, what were you
Oh,
saying,
go
Mark?
ahead, go ahead, Josh. No, you got it. Go ahead.
It starts with usually pressure. There's pressure that comes in the form of a mandate at work that says, here's the new project charter. Go solve this. We need our best minds on it. Go figure it out. We tend to think, okay, we got to do something. Let's lock ourselves in a room and start brainstorming. But that is usually born from a state of pressure. And what Marcus and I have been really relieved to discover is the power of play. Play is the best antidote to pressure. When play is celebrates uncertainty. And when we receive a mandate like this from our leadership team, or we feel convicted, even as a leader of an organization, to go chase new territory, we are kind of pressured to go do it as quick as possible. And sometimes fear creeps in, like, are we going to deliver this? It's scary. It's a scary new space. We can quickly overcome that fear by inviting play into the mix to slow it down, but get us comfortable to embrace the pursuit. Because we know that fear is not going to get us to our best ideas. And it's not going to help us be our best selves. So that's one way we leverage that. When we can invite play in early, we tend to give ourselves permission to just ask, what do we really need right here? And that's where we can hopefully come to the conclusion pretty quickly and say, okay, not everyone's an extrovert. So we know jamming through and forcing a brainstorm session right now might not be the best answer. Let's go ruminate on this for a moment. Let's figure out 1 or 2 or 3 ideas that we're drawn to or excited about and use those to seed our group brainstorm. But really the fear factor can kind of push us into environments that don't make the most logical sense for getting to the best output.
Yeah. And tacking on a little bit to what Josh is saying there, what we've seen in our work is when teams have time to do some introvert brainstorming, maybe even after what we like to call a wander, where you're just kind of set free or encouraged to go and draw inspiration from the environment, or maybe respond to some prompts, some pre-crafted prompts. The quality when the group comes back of the ideas are heightened. Like there's a higher, what we like to call in this work, primal mark. So if everyone's kind of already had the opportunity to go deep or even wonder on the challenge, and they're given the opportunity to come back and submit their best to them, their best idea or the idea that resonates with them the most, and then invite feedback from the teams, we see that the initial mark or the starting point for where that brainstorm can go is a lot higher than if folks are just kind of jammed into this pressure cooker to just produce based on fear or immediacy or some of the other group dynamics that happen, fighting to be heard, trying to be impressive, those types of things.
Wow, I never thought I would be geeking out on why brainstorming can be bad. And this is really fun to be chatting with y'all on this. I love something that you said before, Marcus, breaking free from the obvious. It's like that's the thing that you want to do. And, breaking free from the obvious or the cliche or the drab or the boring or the expected, all these things that come to my mind. Have you all heard of negative ions. Negative ions. Mark, I know you've heard me say this story before, right?
No, this is new. Let's hear
negative
it.
ions,
drop it.
is going to be so good with what you're doing, because so negative ions are they're these little atoms in the air that come from the highest form of them comes from running water. So like a waterfall or a river or an ocean, whatever. That's why the term forest bathing, if you've heard the term forest bathing, there's a lot of things in a forest that create negative ions. And negative ions do everything that you said, Josh. It helps tap into creativity internally. It helps with memory. It helps with so many things. And so I found this out on accident. I love waterfalls, and I live in the world of waterfalls here in the Pacific Northwest. They're everywhere. And I was working on this project for the city of Long Beach, California for like a month. And I was supposed to be creative, go. And I was like supposed to like be creative and come up with this idea. And I was like, okay, I cannot sit in this office anymore trying to come up with creativity. So I went out to the gorge and I sat in front of my favorite waterfall. And I think I was accidentally meditating. I didn't mean to. I was just sitting there and I was watching the water. And as I was sitting there, an idea came to my mind. And I was like, no, this idea is too easy. And the more I thought about it, I was like, I'm actually going to pitch it to them, because it was like it was like the clouds parted and this idea was just like, la. And I pitched it to the city and they loved it and they used it as a campaign. And then when they were done with the campaign, the mayor used it for years after that. Just a simple line that I came up with. And I realized later that the science behind that was that negative ions create these energies in the air. And so now anytime I want to help people with a creativity block, I'm like, let's go to the water, let's go to the forest, so maybe even intentionally taking somebody. And when you said, what did you say? The wonder wander. I was like, the wonder wander needs to go to the forest, needs to go.
Yeah. It's so funny. Immediately my mind goes to, so I'm in Atlanta, right? And there's waterfalls if I drive an hour or two, but that made me think about the shower.
The shower.
And it's not as powerful as the waterfall, but hey, there's negative. Like, I'm gonna go take an ion shower the next time I get stuck. But isn't that great though? Like, there are these things that we just kind of like naturally feel drawn to do. Like, you were naturally drawn there, and then later you accidentally find out that there's a scientific phenomenon that's going on underneath what you were naturally drawn to do and what actually helps you out. And basically that's what Josh and I are doing, is we're saying, hey, there are these things that you have been either a part of or you have been a recipient of. And it can be something as ubiquitous as music. If you have listened to music, chances are you have been impacted by the result of what we're talking about here. And I just think that's fantastic.
Speaking to me with this music, I got so many things in my head. Let's just jump into the music for a second. Is there a particular let's get ready.
He's like, that's my jam.
Is there a particular type of music, beats per minute, a particular style of music? Like, what's the science behind the type of music that brings out that kind of creativity you're talking about?
Man, the key to music is an accessible, approachable way in to a topic that it's got a lot of buzzwords. So we think this oftentimes when we hear creative exploration, we hear words like ideation and ideation pursuits and prototype and concept development and MVPs. There's so much lingo that represents this world of design. And we actually use we use music as a bridge to this world of design. So we're less thinking about the science of beats per minute and what we connect with personally, and we can all agree there's something magical about music. We've all experienced music. How can we use it as a bridge to talk about creative process in a novel way? We also recognize there's a lot of stigmas attached to creative process talk. There's a lot of people who would identify themselves as like, oh, I'm not creative. I'm an accountant and I love my numbers and my spreadsheets. And I can only say that because my accountant friends have told me that directly. And what we're trying to do is before anyone raises their hand and says, ooh, this isn't for me, we use music talk to extend the bridge to say, like, come and talk with us about music. There are some special moments that happened in this world that we can all relate to. And let's figure out how do we translate that to our own problem-solving pursuits. Even using the word problem solving is intentional because we're all solving problems in whatever capacity of work or personal life that we do. We would probably argue that a problem to be solved can be a design problem or an opportunity for creativity. But we want to make that exploration more accessible so that more people can be invited into the door and we can do this type of inspired work together.
Yeah, and Marc, I just want to throw something at you, right? And it's a little controversial, but Prince brought out this thing of 432 hertz is the proper tuning for a song to sort of deliver the right frequencies. And Ivy Ross and Susan Magsamen wrote this incredible book called Your Brain on Art. And they recently did a podcast interview with Adam Grant, where they started to talk about some of what goes on in music. And then they leapt into why they use tuning forks in their work to sort of unlock the mind. And a few things, I think, on sort of the inherent value of music as a place to sort of unlock the mind or go to for inspiration. Music is mathematical. Like, even when you think about classical music or when you think about orchestral music, like, there's time signatures, there are BPMs, like you said. And when there's something that happens, I know in the music industry about 5 years ago, for a while, it all became about pattern matching. So because streaming was running the industry, there was sort of they tapped into what BPMs or what signatures were resonating with people the most and the quickest. And that's why, like, the trap sound in hip hop, like, they just knew if you heard a Mike Will Made It or Metro Boomin at the beginning of the beat tag, it set this expectation for listeners and it performed well. All of that to say that usually when we think about music, we think about it in sort of this passive way, but there is a lot of active things that are going on in music. Hence why for Josh and I, it was almost kind of for you, Cathey, it was like this no-brainer as a well of resource for us to dig into and demystify and decode to pull out some of these things that can transfer to solving business problems. Because musicians ultimately are solving problems. The output is just different from, a marketing executive or a finance executive, but they're doing the same thing.
Yeah. Oh my God. So fascinating. So, I have a necklace that my friend gave me, and it just has like a little tiny whistle on it, right? And it blows one tune, and that tune is 528 hertz. And the 528 hertz is supposed to be the love note. Like, that's supposed to be the hertz of love. So they call it a love tuner, but there's a bunch of research and science, if you look that up too, is like that's supposed to be the resonance of love. And so a lot of love songs are done in that hertz. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny. I don't know how your listeners would be responding to this right now, but and Josh kind of described at the onset, these things can kind of sound woo woo, if you will. Folks are like, ah, nah, that's not for me. Just give me the latest on, how to design a pivot table. And it's like, hey, wait, but let's just give it a try and let's run our challenge through it, and we'll see with these behaviors if you don't surprise yourself in your thinking, if you just open up to what we're talking about here.
Hmm. And on that note, don't you have something that you're going to run us through?
Yeah, we do. Oh man, I'm hoping that for the first time in It's About to Go Down history, we asked you to do some homework.
We did. We did homework. Mark, Mark, you're the teacher in this room. Why are they giving us homework?
Yeah, how'd that feel, Mark?
Yeah, how's
Class
that
is
feel?
in session.
Yeah. Well, you guys got an A+ on your homework, by the way.
Mm.
So every time we begin an idea science experience, we ask the folks joining us to think about a real problem to be solved, a real challenge on their plate that they care about. What we found is if you care about this thing, you are way more open to try new tools. And those tools that are brand new, you can build a more durable and sustainable momentum using them again and again. But it has to start with us individually picking a problem that we care about. You have to care for this to provide value out of the gates. What our goal is as leaders, as coaches, as facilitators of guiding this experience is how do we make sure that the folks coming to experience this have a well-scoped challenge? And we created something called the Design Challenge Mad Lib. Mad Lib is like a fill-in-the-blank exercise. We asked you to fill in the blanks of your own Mad Lib. I'll share a little bit about what the structure is, and then I want to invite you to read out what you crafted here. We'll hear a little bit more about what and why you picked it. The way the Mad Lib unfolds is first, how might we help? First blank, and this is your target audience. Who are we trying to solve this challenge for? No matter what we're exploring, it's got to be in service of someone else. Who is that group? How might we help blank feel blank emotion? We're diving into the humanity of this challenge. What do we want these people to feel? The last is about blank. And this is where we insert a specific topic. With specificity, what's the topic that is on our plate in our work, in our personal life that we're diving into? So we've gotten to a human, we've gotten to an emotion underpinning what we want them to feel, and we've gotten to a well-scoped topic. So this was the challenge we gave to you, and we want to hear what bubbled up for you when you were doing your homework.
Yeah, that was kind of easy, Mark, right? It's a thing that's been on our mind a lot. So Mark and I just started a Speaker Skills Academy where we're doing something very different. You both know, because you both have joined one of our sessions. We're doing something very, very different and that's a great thing. But at the same time, I don't think people understand how it's different. But we're teaching people the art of getting better at something. The only way you can get better is through drilling. It's not when you're actually doing it. It's when you're drilling it. When you get the chance to practice it over and over, you kind of go into one specific thing and you do it over and over and over. And so we created the Speaker Skills Academy, but a lot of people, because it's called Speaker Skills Academy, think, oh, it's just for professional speakers. And that's not the case. In fact, that's going to be our biggest challenge in marketing it. It's a community, as you two both know, of people that are awesome and are using speaking in different ways. Some people are just mentoring the youth in their communities. Like, what? So what we said to you, because that's our challenge, is we don't want people to just think it's just for speakers. We said, how might we help people who want to speak better? So that's our only preface. That's our audience. That's our group, right? How might we want to help people who speak better feel confident and creative about the way that they communicate. Confident and creative about the way. And we're in the same vibe as you all, because we teach people to be different, creative, unexpected, to talk about their ideas and their stories in a different way. Don't go back to the BS normal, what people expect you to say kind of thing. So that's why creative is in there too.
Ooh. I mean, sign me up.
Right? Exactly. Marcus gets it.
Specifically the words you chose, you had help them feel blank. The words you chose were confident and creative. I can instantly think about the human that you're solving this need for. I don't get drawn to the business challenge on your plate. And I think what is unique about this approach, which you're taking it for a test drive with us, is in business, we often have a business challenge that we're trying to craft and go solve, and it can sound kind of businessy. But I love the way that you have zoomed in on there are these humans that have a story to tell, and we want to figure out how to make them feel confident and creative in the way that they bring that to life. So man, I just am full of gratitude that you took the time to articulate this mission that you're set out to explore. Okay, we start with a noble challenge worth solving. Now we want to give you we're going to give you one flavor of the idea science experience. And this recipe is musical phenomena, neuroscience, creative tool. So let's start with the phenomenon. Beach Boys, Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson is not necessarily the front man, but he is the mastermind behind the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson listened to an album called Rubber Soul by the Beatles. And he was so moved by this album, he said, if I ever do anything else in my life, I want to make that good an album. He went on to ask, I've got this idea in my head. Instead of how would Brian Wilson explore this idea? He asked, how would the Beatles give life to this idea in my head? If I pretend to be a Beatle, how would they pursue this idea? In the design world, we call this analogous exploration or analogous inspiration, and that is channeling another person, another organization, another entity to get out of our own world into something else. The science behind this is the fact that by leveraging analogous inspiration, by channeling someone else or something else, this promotes neuroplasticity. And something we've been kind of jazzed about recently is that when children role play, they do imaginary play, they take on a different role. Maybe it's through dress up or through play. These situations actually help them form new neural connections. Pretend play stimulates neuroplasticity and the brain's ability to adapt and learn. There are a history of design tools. There's one specifically created by someone named Rick Griggs that leverages this insight, and he developed something called role storming, pretending to be someone else to explore new and novel territory. And so we asked ourselves, wow, how can we design a tool for creative exploration that leverages this act of channeling someone else or something else to get beyond the obvious ideas that come first? You guys want to take this tool for a test drive?
Oh, heck yeah.
Let's go.
Okay,
Let's do
Go.
it.
We're already in the car.
Yeah, buddy. So our goal, we call this tool an introvert brainstorm. We already talked about how there's maybe a bias toward first step is let's cram everyone in a room and crack open the Red Bulls and get a brainstorm going. We're going to pause the extroversion and we're going to do some solo exploration. You guys will have a chance to each independently explore. What's going to be unique about the way we do this together is we're going to invite you to maybe give us a running dialogue of what's happening inside. So talk aloud what comes to mind with each of these prompts. Our goal is to just get to 3 ideas, 3 seed ideas that will push you beyond the obvious stuff that might come first. You'll pick your favorite, and you would then take that idea to a extrovert brainstorm. You're going to seed with something, as Marcus alluded to, a primal mark, a better idea to get a really good group brainstorm rolling. So if our goal is to get to the 3 first ideas, I know you've got a pen and paper. And so I want to invite you to just jot down. There it is. Here's the first prompt. Write down the first obvious idea that comes to mind when you think about your challenge at hand. And would you mind reading your challenge one more time aloud for us?
Yeah. How might we help people who want to speak better feel confident and creative about the way that they communicate?
Amazing. So we're centered on this challenge. I want to invite you to just jot down the first obvious idea that comes to mind. And let's hear, what'd you capture? What was going on in your mind as you put this down?
You want to go first, Cathey? Or you want me to go first?
You go first. I'm feeling a little gun shy about my answer.
I tried to keep it simple, taking the direction. And all that I wrote down was make it fun through game play. Well, I wrote gameplay drills, but I'll keep it short.
Okay,
make
cool.
it fun through gameplay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, I wasn't too far off. We were thinking kind of the same way. I just said teach them a drill, which our drills are always fun. I was like, that's kind of the, it seemed like the too obvious of the answer, but it's really the obvious answer for us.
Yeah.
So people actually like the drills, like show them, like we're gonna do, Mark's running a session today on making faces. He's gonna do some fun drills on having people do different faces. So
yeah. Can you tell me, Cathey, I noticed something in your face, which is maybe how you feel about your first idea. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe that was apprehension or there was something there? Can you tell us a little more about it?
yeah, me being a creative, I'm like, oh, now I have to be creative with my stuff. And I'm like, I'm probably not doing it right for myself. I did feel a little apprehensive on it because I was like, oh, I'm just saying the obvious. And my brain wants to, especially the extroverted brain in me, wants to have a good answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was struggling with that for sure.
So I just really appreciate you sharing that and honoring that the way we think of this first box is a receptacle to get the obvious thing out and out of the way. Oftentimes we experiencing
Boom.
yeah, high five.
High five. We did it, Mark.
If we don't get that first idea out of the way, we can get some cognitive fixation, which is like, no matter what, I just keep thinking about my early first idea. And here it's just a receptacle to say, okay, I'm going to write it down so I can move on to the next one.
Ooh, we got another A, Mark. I love it.
Woohoo, yeah.
We earned 2 A's.
The fact that you felt the way that you did is an A+ in executing idea number 1.
Yeah,
Nice.
Mark's locked in now. He's motivated.
Yeah, Mark's like, all right, let's go. Let's go.
Okay, you guys ready? We got 3 in total. You ready for number 2?
Yeah, ready.
Okay. We're going to invite you each to write down a brand that has solved a similar challenge brilliantly well. This could be industry agnostic. When you think about the challenge of building confidence and creativity, I'm seeing a chuckle here. Who is
I think I know who Cathey's
that comes to
thinking about.
mind that has done this brilliantly well before? Any industry. And we'll just invite you to jot the brand down.
I don't even know the name of the brand, but you guys are gonna laugh. Oh.
You can even do like a 3-word headline of what the brand represents too, if you can't recall the exact brand.
Okay.
Are you willing to unveil what was behind the chuckles?
Yeah, definitely. Mark, are you ready for this? Okay, not everything goes back to pickleball, but I am going to say that this is my first thought was all I kept seeing, because on my social media knows I play pickleball for sure, right? I kept seeing this thing called a dink master. And what it is like a little small net, and you hit against a wall, and it's a dink master, and it helps you with the best part of the game, which is the soft part. But then I remembered back to my youth when I was learning to pitch, they had the pitch back. And I think that was just the technical name. Do you all remember that? Where you could throw the ball at it, the baseball, and it comes back to you. Or I pitched and it's a pitch back. And so I think both of those products, and the Dink Master is the name of that one, I think they're solving the problem that we are, is that you get better at that thing when you do it over and 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 over. Marcus, that's probably not what you thought, was it?
Yeah.
Well, I thought Nike was gonna be.
I knew that's what you thought.
But I love that it is relevant to your daily life, which is pickleball playing. So, Mark, you had a bit of a furrowed brow over there. I am assuming that you took a wild leap here. So it'd be cool to hear, where did your mind go?
I actually struggled a lot with this. And I even found myself still thinking while I was listening to Cathey. And I'm not even happy with the answer I came up with, but I will tell you that the thing that I ended up writing down on my paper was the Rubik's Cube.
What?
So a stretch. Okay, we got
it.
I just remember when it came out, and it was like, I mean, it's so simple. It's this block.
Yes.
With all of these basic colors on it. And the only objective is to get all of the same colors on the same side. And the objective is simple, but it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And even once people figured out how to do it, they were doing it again. And then you had these multiple versions of it. And dare I say, when I was in elementary school, then we discovered kids who knew how to take the blocks off.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah,
I know, I too.
But I love that it is relevant. I'll just say that quickly so we can move on to number 3. Yeah. The drill thing, it's there. I love that.
Yeah. You guys maybe know the question that's coming next. Just like how Brian Wilson asked, how would the Beatles explore this idea? What we want to invite you to ask is, how would the Dink Master, the creators of the Dink Master, what inspiration can we draw from where their heads were at to our problem? If I tease the Rubik's Cube out a little further, Mark, what makes the Rubik's Cube particularly applicable to this challenge is it's pocket-sized practice, and it's with you all the time. So when you think about the challenge in front of you, what does that make you think of? What is an idea that comes if you just leverage inspiration of pocket-sized practice with you all the time?
Yeah.
So I want to invite you guys just to ponder, get something out. It can be anything. There's no judgment or critique of the idea that comes, but it's just capturing what comes. What thought comes, we're just going to capture it and jot it down.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, just talk out loud?
We're giving you space to write.
Okay, thank
you. As soon as you're ready, we'd love to just hear what popped in your head. Again, the way we think about this phase of really early, sometimes fragile work is instead of asking, what do I think of this idea? Ask, what does this idea make me think of? The goal is it's just a tool for generating more. So this can be an early sacrificial idea, but when you're ready to share, we'd love to hear what came to mind for you when you were channeling the Dink Master or channeling the Rubik's Cube. Did it spark a new direction for you in your challenge?
And I came up with kind of like a tagline. That's kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I came up with the drilling partner you'll always have, so you don't have to do it alone. It's like you'll always have it there whenever you need it. And that's the hard part on any of these things, Mark, I think that you're trying to do. Speaking especially, it's such a lonely, speaking is can be a very lonely, a lot of people think that speakers, and now I am going to talk about speakers for a second, but we're on a stage and we're around hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. But 99% of the work you do, you're alone by yourself, trying to come up with good ideas and good stories. So it's like the community that we've created is why I was thinking that the community is the drilling partner, and so is the system. That was my thinking.
I'm inspired, and thank you for this pocket-sized practice.
I know, I love it.
What comes to mind for me is not so much a tagline, but it's this image of people at home in their own private space who are able to access some of these drills that we do, so that at some point, right? I mean, we love people coming to the gym, but the thought that there are members of our community who, even when they're not showing up to the proverbial gym, are in their living room going through these drills.
Sounds good.
Wow.
That's culture building to me.
I want to jump in and that's such a good thread. When you talked about pocket-sized practice, one of the things that I was drawn to is back to what Josh talked about, play. And in the Rubik's Cube, it's not so much about solving the Rubik's Cube as much as it is coming up with all the different ways to do it. And that's where like the fun and the play. So I think about your idea and I'm like, oh man, that would be so cool if folks could do these, like this pocket practice that also had built in this play aspect where it's not just about coming up with your idea. It's how many different ways can we get you there? So I'm starting to see like numbered cards that could be like mixed and matched and rearranged. I'm seeing like random stimulus that could be brought in and out. All that to say, I love to see the diversity of thought that's happening here, like live seeing how your creative minds are processing these prompts differently. Josh, where you want to take them next? This is so fun.
One way that we assess we're always like tempted, it's human nature to ask, am I doing this right? Am I exploring this right? I think I can even see it on your faces a little bit as you dive into this in a live setting. And the way that we judge the content we capture in our scrappy notebook is how generative is it? Does it open up possibilities? And when I think about what Cathey wrote down, you captured overcoming loneliness. That's a whole new category that the solution that you captured here pushed us into. And it is generative because it starts sparking many new ideas about overcoming loneliness. And Mark, you shared, what about in a private space, or how can I access this in my home to make it more rote and more routine? And that opened up Marcus's exploration and sparked new directions. So I just really admire the way that you can embrace such a vulnerable ask of us to give this a try in this setting. But the judgment is not, am I doing this right? It is this opening up more possibilities in our pursuit?
And it is.
Okay, we got one more.
Ooh, another one. Okay,
A bonus one.
The
The bases are loaded.
All right.
You guys are
All
stepping up
right.
to the plate right now to crack a grand slam.
Okay.
The final idea of your three, the question is, what's a service you've been recently splurged on? Is there a service that you can think of that you've recently splurged? Maybe it was a little Hulu action or a house cleaner or something like this. What's a service you've recently splurged on? We're just going to ask you to jot it down. You don't have to tell us this one. You can just capture it. You don't have to tell us yet. There's always an invitation.
We have to tell you.
Yeah. And the last question is, how can that experience inspire your next idea?
Oh, so good. Oh, it's too good. It's too
What
good.
made it worth the splurge, and how do you allow this to inspire your next idea? You're welcome to share what you captured. But the intention here for us is just to give you a teaser of like, what does it feel like to do this work? So we can talk about the thing, or we can talk about kind of what it makes you think of, or new questions that come to mind after getting a little bit of a experiential taste of it.
Mark, you go first.
All right. First of all, I'll talk about the process.
Yeah.
And what's standing out for me is starting from this receptacle for the obvious, and then how, even though it was a little bit of a productive struggle, even on the second question, then the act of them sharing it. So that introverted brainstorming and then sharing it out loud and seeing how other people riff on it, right? To me, that's that musical term, right? Now we're riffing off of each other. I love that. And then the last question, wow. In its own strange way, I won't say it inspired me the most. I think it was this crescendo that's now inspired me to another level. And I will tell you that the service I wrote, at first I wrote down Subway service, but then, but then I wrote down Weight Watchers, because my wife got me into Weight Watchers last year, and it was so transformational. But I could do it on my own. I didn't have to go there. There was a way for me to track things. There was a little bit of, Cathey's gonna love this word, there was a little bit of gamification in it. And oh, wow. No, this process was very awesome. Very awesome. I got some more thoughts, but I want to hear from Cathey.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Mark.
Mark, you explained that so well. Like, I love how you told them, even just how you explained how the riffing was good and everything. I love that. And you are so right. The crescendo of what, where our brain went. And Josh, I really appreciate you constantly reminding us, like, don't judge, don't judge, don't judge, just do. But Mark, I'll say that you explained that so well, because by the time we got to this fourth one, I was like, okay, a service that I've splurged on. And then I'm like, oh, I'm such a nerd. You guys aren't going to believe what I said. But it comes with a funny backstory. So when I was really young and I really wanted to be a better pitcher, my dad was coaching a team and I wanted to be a better pitcher. My dad gave me a bunch of socks and he put a bunch of duct tape around it. He's like, don't bother me. Just go up against the wall and pitch against the wall. So I did that for a while, but it didn't really replicate the weight of the ball. And so then I got the pitch back, and it really brought me back to this time where my dad was like, I'm not spending any money on you getting better at something. If you want to get better, look, we don't got money. We got 7 kids in this house and we don't got money for that. If you want to get better, you just go do that. Right. And so then I was thinking, recently, I know that drilling gets you better at things, but recently I've splurged on getting a coach, like paying a lot of money to have a pickleball coach. So me and my sister see this coach, and I will tell you that the one thing that I loved, because it probably ties really nicely to what we do, is he is such a good coach. He can give me a concept and I get it immediately. I like, it changes my game. And then it made me think, that's totally what we're doing for our community. We say these little concepts and things because we're thinking about, speaking all the time. And it's exactly the same. We'll tell them something that we feel like it's a throwaway almost, but it's a concept that we teach somebody and they're like, changes their game. Anyway, I would have never even put those things together had you not asked me that, Josh.
I love that. I want to comment on for both of you, seeing your stamina to push and to think increase in this short amount of time. Both of you had two instances that you thought of. So Cathey, it was your dad with the tape ball, and then you thought about the coach. And then for you, Marc, at first it was Subway service, and then it was Weight Watchers. So right there, a lot of times teams will ask, okay, so how, kind of Cathey, what you were asking is another question we get a lot of times. How do I know if I'm doing it right? And I think there's an immediate measure that we can see is your quantity on quantity is going up. Like you're actively pushing past your first thought to go to something more exploratory. So I just wanted to comment and like tease that out. So good.
Love that, Marcus. I love that. What an easy way. Like, I'm glad you did this with us because it shows us right here on our show how awesome, freaking awesome you guys are, because we have a show about ideas. What our show's about. We're talking ideas with people constantly. And you just ran in front of everybody. You ran us through this really cool way to slough off all of the judgment, all of the crappy stuff that goes with trying to come up with good ideas. And you showed us simply and powerfully how we could do it in real time right now. This is freaking awesome.
Yes,
maybe an epiphany we've recently had is we have honed for years in idea generation or brainstorming, we have to defer judgment. And oftentimes we think of that as judging others' ideas. That means someone shares an idea and we're quick to say, that's too expensive, or we've done that before, or that's too wacky, let's come back to earth. But really, we have to first defer judgment of our own ideas. That's the biggest hurdle that we have to get over first. And having some protected space to use tools like this to do our own introverted exploration can help us tackle the critical monster that no matter what, it lives in all of us. And with the right tools and support, we can overcome that.
I got a question, and I don't want us to go too much into a rabbit hole with this, but I'm just curious because I've heard you use the word, stigma that was used a little bit earlier, and this has you've eased us through this process, and I can't wait for Cathey and I to riff on it even more beyond this point. I can only imagine that there have been some people that you've come across that they're still stuck, that they're still detractors, that you haven't hit that nerve yet. There's a nerve yet that you haven't quite hit, that you're trying to figure out in order to get them to this other side. And I'm just curious, what has been that one roadblock in getting this idea out that you haven't quite figured out yet how to get around?
There's something that comes to mind as a roadblock. So, one thing that we try to do in our innovation work is eat our own cooking. And so we're constantly coaching teams on the value of prototyping and testing. And so very early, when we were testing, some of the feedback, there was a piece of feedback that was given to Josh directly, and then Josh brought it to me, and we both had to sit with it for a second. And it was the thought that this might be too cool for its own good.
Interesting.
And that really, when we first heard that, there was sort of this moment where Josh and I kind of had to step back and say, okay, wow, that dynamic has been looking us in the face this whole time, because we're sharing something that gets us excited and motivated, and also we're trying to innovate. We're trying to innovate on innovation, right? And so the way that we responded to that was to up our level of play. And by that, we don't mean excellence. We mean how playful do we show up? How, for another way to say it, is how goofy can we be when we deliver this session, to sort of lower the bar and let people know, like, hey, yes, what we're talking about is cool. You know, Kendrick Lamar, Willie Nelson, you know, at the same time, it's accessible. So we're just in the water splashing and not taking ourselves too seriously, to show people in real time that the water's warm. Come on in, just play, right? It's like pickleball. I may suck the first time. I go play pickup soccer. Last year I played a lot of pickup soccer, and I would tell y'all I am no good at soccer. And I play in an intense league. But the thing that I love about soccer, as I grew up playing basketball, is how welcoming it is. These folks are so happy that a non-soccer player wants to come and play, that they welcome me out, and I'm just out there leaning on my basketball to try to make the connection. And the same thing is happening there, where we're so excited about this that we're just playing. Like we drop the level of seriousness to help folks engage. So that's one thing that comes to mind.
I love that, Marcus. Mark, I don't know if you picked up on this, like, because Marcus has now said it like three times, but I feel like the thing that I love that they're talking about is they're innovating innovation. To me, that's my favorite line of what you've said. And if I were to pull something out of what you all said to elevate that, it would definitely be that, because I think you called out very beautifully, you've called out some of the bad parts of how the process of innovation can be hard for some people. Mark and I were just having a conversation earlier on, we were having a conversation earlier, like, where do we come up with good ideas? And we're like, oh, it's a muscle that, and people sometimes are like, oh, I'm not creative. And then Mark and I are like, no, everybody's creative. And so you all did that beautifully. And so I just love, like, that would be the line, like, you're innovating innovation. You're dusting it off and you're making it better. You're making it a more inclusive playground, I would say. Yeah.
Let me grab my pen on that one.
You better grab. Mark is like, let me grab my pen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And if I could just piggyback, yeah, I've heard that line a couple of times in this conversation. It was awesome. I like the line that you just delivered, Cathey. And I will tell you, as we move forward with our idea with the Speaker Skills Academy, when I just heard you say up our level of play, I thought about Speaker Skills Academy, because it is a playful arena. Like, we want people to have fun. I always say, the mission is to take the world's greatest fear and turn it into the world's greatest fun. And that's a bodacious claim to do with public speaking. But if we can make it a pocket-sized playground.
I love that. The pocket-sized playground.
Oh, man. That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Can you repeat that line again? You want to make the fear into
the world's greatest fear into the world's greatest fun.
Oh my God.
Oh wow. Barsmello Anthony. That is crazy. Wow, what a bar. That is so good.
Oh man.
So good. I know, I just wrote it down.
This is inspired by this conversation, and it has Cathey and I don't know about the two of you, we could probably keep this conversation going for quite some more time. I'm just having fun. I feel like we've only begun to play. But we do have to wrap the fun up for this time in the playground. And on behalf of Cathey, Josh, and Marcus, just curious, since we started this conversation, I think Cathey and I have been the ones who gained from it, by the way. But just curious, what has stood out for you or resonated with you around the conversation that we've just had, including what you just wrote down, Marcus?
Yeah, a few things. I love you guys have you guys have given us the gift of reflecting, and as I reflect on the work that we're doing, it does feel really good to hear that there's something to us making innovation a more inclusive playground. That resonates, that feels like such a great ambition or North Star for what we're doing. We have so much fun doing this, and we don't want this work to be a secret. We want to invite others to the playground. We want to play new games. We want to play in new arenas. And that's something that's sticking out a bit. It's a little nudge of confidence.
Something standing out to me is the way that the both of you, Marc and Cathey, have modeled vulnerability. We asked you to do some homework, and then we didn't tell you how we were going to apply that homework. And so to dive in and grapple in this kind of setting and explore inspires me to figure out, man, if we're wrestling with something feeling too cool for school, the best antidote for that is vulnerability in the way that we show up. And so I'm really inspired by the way that you two authentically grappled with this in a way that got you to greatness really quick. So I'm filled with gratitude in the way that both of you were so game to dive into this experience together.
And the gratitude is mutual. The gratitude is mutual. Tell us, where can people find out more about innovation in this inclusive
Idea
playground,
science.
in this place of vulnerability, idea science?
Yeah.
How can more people find out about you and your work?
Marcus and I are senior directors of innovation at Stoked. Stokedproject.com is where you can catch up with us. If you do stokedproject.com/idea science, that's where you go directly to this offering from Stoked. You can also catch us on LinkedIn at Stoked. You can catch us on Instagram at Stoked Project. Those are the best places to follow along with us. And we're excited to keep this conversation going with you.
Nice. Well, thank you. It's a love fest of gratitude going on right now. An idea conversation about idea science just dropped some ideas that we didn't even know we had when this conversation started. So thank you so much. And just like we want to continue this conversation with you, we're hoping that there's people out there who are watching this show, who know people who have great ideas, will also come and join Cathey and I for some awesome idea conversations. And whether it's you who have the idea that you want to have a conversation with us about, or you know somebody else, get in touch with us at It's About to Go Down show. Marc and Cathey would love to have an idea conversation with you. The art and science of ideas is living well in the negative ions of space. So let's keep playing.
Someone out there is blowing the love whistle because it is buzzing. It is buzzing right now.
It is. And that's what happens every time. So we hope everybody who's watching had a great time, and we will definitely see you the next time on It's About to Go Down.